Now I really want to know who prefers non-ridges over ridges. Actually, wait, I sometimes do. It depends. Anyway.
Yeah, it depends.
It
on
depends
the
on your brand of chip.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're eating your Lay's chips, you got to go with the smooth ones.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you're eating your Ruffles,
question.
you got to go with the ridges.
Absolutely, I agree with that too.
Let's see. What other?
Evan, do you disagree?
No, I mean I do like wavy Lays though. Sometimes I like a wavy chip.
Wait a minute though. Do you eat them soft or crunchy?
Oh, good question.
It is a good question. Chips crunchy. I like my chips crunchy.
Chips crunchy.
All
Unlike
right,
my
all
cereal.
right.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's always going to blow my mind.
Only the stalest
Same.
chips for me. The stalest, softest chips. I like my chips like I like my dip.
That is not where I thought that was going.
I open the bag. And I leave it open for 3 days, and I go back and I check those chips. Yeah.
Once it's reached an appropriate softness, I stick it in the dip, and if it breaks in the dip, then I know I've done a good job.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow.
Stale chips and soggy cereal. That's quite tantalizing.
Hey everyone, welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. I write for Salt Lake City Weekly, and I am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
I'm Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer and film critic, editor of Bitchflix, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am editor for The Independent. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yeah, you are.
Go buy it.
I mean, you want to buy it from me? I've got some copies still on my shelves I'm willing to sell you, and I'll even sign it.
Ooh.
I have a signed copy on my shelf.
Wait, I don't have a signed copy because I bought mine on Amazon. God damn
Bring
it.
it over, I'll sign it.
Yeah, okay, cool. I know. I fucking see you every week. You just fucking bring it over. What a jackass. Okay. Hi, my name's Dave, and I'm stupid. So, anyway, I did want to ask you, though, because I got an email from a listener who didn't email. It's one of my friends who didn't email the show, emailed me. It's like, what does the co-chair of BAFTA do? So give us the 10-cent tour on that, if you don't mind.
Great
Keep
question.
the lights on. I mean, mainly what I do is I interface with, publicists and studios to make sure that all of you guys are able to get access to films. I also help with the website. I'm also the treasurer of the group, which I don't typically mention, meaning I manage all of our money that we have between member dues, the things to pay for, our yearly dinner, and whatever else that we do with our money.
You also field new applications, too.
Yes, I talk to new members and put people up to a vote.
Yes.
And then every once in a while, I amicably resolve disputes between members.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully they'll be amicable.
Hopefully they're amicable, yeah. So anyway, thank you for filling us in, Evan, on what you do, which is a lot. And we just want everybody to know who is a BAFTA person, if you are listening. Hey, man, give Evan some props. He does a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, guys.
This week, we have but 3 films to discuss. We have Emma, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a new version of Emma by Jane Austen. And then you guys saw Swallow, which is not about the tiny little bird.
No.
And
Most definitely not.
And then the final movie of the night will be The Hunt, which said without growling is The Hunt. Yeah. First of all, let's talk Emma.
Okay.
Which you saw and I saw.
I sure did.
And it's Emma with a period at the end.
Yeah.
I don't really love that style. I don't like stylization. It's like there's the band of Montreal and of is lowercase. It's like, why is of lower? Fuck you and your bullshit. The only band that I will accept or anything that I immediately accepted punctuation in that it's unnecessary is Portugal the Man.
I knew you were going to say Portugal the Man.
Did you?
Because we've talked about it before.
Oh, okay.
That's the only way. Not that I'm like.
But that's the only one. But and I don't really like if you think about it. Why is it called Emma?
Period.
Full stop. You know.
I was hoping you could shed some light on
Maybe
that.
it's because this is the definitive screen version of Emma. I don't
There'll
know.
never be an adaptation again.
I mean, I'm sure there will.
There will. There totally will.
Because it's kind of, I mean, I hesitate to call it timeless because it does take place in a particular time. And only
Very much
once that
so.
I can think of has it been updated, Clueless. But this is, I liked it. I'm going to go out there and say it.
Okay.
I am what you would call an appreciator of Anya Taylor-Joy. So
I mean, she's great.
she's the fucking best.
Yeah. I mean, I love her in The Witch. I love her
Yeah.
in Split.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She's great at.
Split.
She's great in
Good
this
God.
too. I didn't say I liked Split. I just said she's great.
She's
in
great
it.
in Split,
She's
yeah.
great in Split. I mean, Split's fine. It's whatever. But it's fine.
It's all right.
But yeah, no, she's great in this. I have not read the source material, so I cannot.
Oh, you haven't?
I have not.
I read it when I was like 17. I had to read it for a class.
Mm.
I remember nothing. What I kind of remember about Oz, I don't remember there being a lot of dialogue in, because I've read Pride and Prejudice too, and
There's
I don't
a
remember.
lot of dialogue in that.
I don't remember it though.
Oh, that's so funny.
And you know, you see Pride and Prejudice, the Emma Thompson written screenplay, the Ang Lee movie,
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't remember these people talking that much on the page. Like you know, I remember thinking they had a conversation about blah 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 blah, and then
That's true. There are a lot of parts
yeah.
like that.
But then there's
too.
just like I think a lot of, if I had to guess, a lot of the dialogue is Emma Thompson, you know,
Infused.
originals, yes.
Sure.
But any spray, we were talking about Emma.
We are.
This is one of the most colorful movies I have seen in a very long time.
It's gorgeous.
It's bright and vibrant.
Yes.
And we should mention that the director, Autumn Wilde, is, before she was a filmmaker, was a
Yes.
still photographer.
Yes.
And you can see that. You can see that in her in her shot compositions.
Very much so. And the costumes are exquisite.
Yeah.
And everything looks like a painting. Yeah,
And
it's
the thing I
stunning.
like about the costumes though is you can, and this has to be done on purpose. There are some that are, there's one that Emma wears where it's like one of those floofy neck kind of things, but the neck it just doesn't fit her quite right, and it comes up a little too far, you know. And then you see her later, and she's got another one where it does fit properly, and you're like, So that was a thing they did, I think. But anyway, we know the story, right? It's this young woman who's kind of persnickety and full of herself. And she's trying to matchmake lots of peeps while staying single herself because she's got to take care of her father,
Yes.
she thinks, because he's Bill Nighy or Nye or whatever you say. And I was not sold on his performance.
What?
Just wait.
I will not wait.
I was not sold on his performance until the very end. I'm like, so that's why they've been doing this the whole time. Because it was all one big long setup for
Yes.
a punchline that you had to wait 2 hours for, which was worth it, I
It
should
was
say.
worth it. I think he is so funny and just delightful in this.
Yeah.
I think he is in everything, but yeah.
Well, he's
great
one of
in
those
this.
people who's always a version of himself.
Sure.
Except for, I will say, I think it's called The Girl in the Cafe or The Woman in the Cafe. It's the one with Kelly MacDonald.
I'm not familiar
It was
with
an HBO original movie, and he plays an MP and very buttoned up and introverted and very...
Oh, that's not him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe that is the real him, but that's not his film persona.
Yeah, he's normally
Yeah.
very light and
Yes.
fun.
Yeah. And you could say that he's light in this.
Oh yeah.
He's
he is.
his character is always thinking he feels a draft in whatever room he's in. There's a draft, and he wants to have a fan brought and put in front of the window and unfurled and put in front of the window. And the gag at the end is, if I'm not revealing anything, it's God, what is his name? The love interest,
Mr. Knightley.
Mr. Knightley. When she and Knightley finally get together at the end, he says to them, "Wait, don't you guys feel a draft?" And they're like, "No, we don't feel a fucking draft." And he's like, "Bring in the screens." And the servant guys, the valets, whatever you want to call them, put it in front of him. He's like, "Not in front of me." And then they put one in front of the two of them, and so they can make out without feeling awkward in front of her dad. But and that's the gag, you know.
Which is very cute.
But at the same time, it's like, I'd still feel pretty awkward.
Yeah, knowing that your dad is just behind the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, get up and move, Dad. Fuck.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great gag. I just remember when the Pride and Prejudice version with oh God, what's her name? Keira Knightley came out, and people like freaked out because they kissed, and it's like, that's not accurate. That would never happen. And people were like going bonkers, apparently.
I mean, who gives a
So-
shit? Like, people fucked in the 1800s. How do you think they made more people, for Christ's sake?
But that's what I mean. So, I mean, I could see a purist, pushing back on that, but I don't care. I am not a purist, and I thought it was very charming and lovely. And
Have you heard my arguments about source material?
no,
The source material doesn't matter.
I agree. You should not have to read the book or go to the
Exactly.
source. The adaptation should be able to stand on its own.
When people say to me about an adaptation I don't care for, well, it makes a lot more sense if you read the book. Fuck you, man. Why
Then-
should I read the book?
Then it's a shitty adaptation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a good adaptation, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It was beautiful to look
Yeah.
at.
Well, it's definitely a lot more stylized than let's
Yes.
talk about the Emma Thompson. The Gwyneth Paltrow version. I can't remember who directed that, but for one thing, I think that Emma. God, I keep saying Emma Thompson. I think Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't have the great English accent everybody thinks she does. She just kind of sounds like Gwyneth Paltrow, but bored. That's kind of how I feel like she sounds when she does an English accent.
All right.
And so let's compare like the most famous scene.
Well, I haven't seen it, so
You haven't seen the other one?
Nope.
Oh, okay, then we can't do that.
Well,
then.
we can.
Well, the
I just can't contribute.
so the most famous scene I think in Emma is when Emma accidentally makes a fool of, insults greatly poor Miss
Oh.
Bates,
Poor Miss Bates. So
who in this version
my
is the most
God.
like
lovely because it's Miranda Hart, who is so wonderful.
But also,
Oh.
it's really like the Gwyneth Paltrow version. She's not. They make a great show in this version of making her clothes kind of ill-fitting, and she kind of stoops because she's so tall.
Yep.
And you can tell that she feels uncomfortable in her skin.
Sure.
Whereas in that one, in the Gwyneth Paltrow movie, she's just kind of, I don't want to say rube because she's not a rube, but she's kind of just like, duh, that's kind of how they play her. And in this one, though, she's like a kind, sensitive person
sweet,
and very
yeah,
sweet and
yes.
cares a great deal about Emma for that matter.
Yep.
But for some reason, she's been dealt a shitty hand in life,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually not that shitty if you consider what the alternatives are. But comparatively
speaking,
to
it's
like
shitty,
Emma's,
yeah.
it's shitty. So the big scene is that they're playing a game at this picnic, and the game is you can only say like 3 stupid things, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. And Emma says,
Or you can do some kind of like
right, you can.
complicated thing
Yeah.
or what have you.
And so Miss Bates says, "Oh, I don't know if I'm very good at, saying stupid things." And Emma says, "Oh, sure you are. You just have to remember to limit it to 3." And it's like, ooh, ouch. And it's one of those things where the movie's really smart. You kind of get, and I think this has a lot to do with probably the way it's written, but also Anya Taylor-Joy's performance, is you kind of know Emma's a little bit of an asshole,
I think you get that right from the start.
But I mean, here's the thing, is you kind of get sucked in. You kind of like her anyway, because it's just like, 1, it's Anya Taylor-Joy, and 2, it's so witty and, like kind of fast paced and just kind of smart that you sort of forget that even though she's the protagonist, she's also kind of the antagonist.
Did you forget that? Because I didn't. I was like, she's kind of an asshole throughout the whole film.
Well, here you go, though. When you get to that scene, and of course I know what's coming, I'm just like, ugh. And then that line happens, and you're just like, oh my God, that is one of the most cruel things I have ever heard one person say to another.
Yeah, it was so needlessly nasty.
Yeah, and the way that they play it in the movie is that Emma realizes it immediately, but she doesn't want to, own up to. She doesn't want to own it, and it's only when Knightley comes to her and is like, "You fucking dick,"
Yep.
basically. His line is very badly done, Emma. Very badly done.
I am so disappointed.
Yeah. And of course, she dissolves into tears. And then she gives Miss Bates, this is interesting, a non-apology apology.
Yeah.
I mean, she goes to Miss Bates and
Yep.
gives her a gift. And I can't remember what she says, but she never says, "I'm sorry."
But I think she's going to. Like, I got the sense, and again, I haven't read the source material, I haven't seen any other adaptations, but I very much got the sense that she was like on the verge.
And then Miss Bates interrupted her.
Yeah, and Miss Bates.
Because that's what she does.
Yeah, and she doesn't allow her to. Yeah.
Yeah, I do actually. I kind of remember that now. But you can tell though that she is very contrite. She does feel bad.
Yeah, right. She's not when I say she's an asshole, I don't mean she's like a terrible person.
No.
She's just kind of full of herself and thinks she's great and never wrong, and she's young.
Let's talk about Mia Goth for a minute.
Okay.
She's great.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah. Well, Harriet, is Harriet, is that her character's name? I can't remember.
Sure. I think so.
She's an interesting character. So.
Yeah, I found her annoying that she was so easily manipulated by Emma, but they also have kind of a sweet friendship. Like it's interesting.
Her name is Harriet, by the way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I just really dug this version overall. I loved the guy who played Knightley.
Oh, guy who played Knightley is fantastic.
Yeah. Was his name Johnny Flynn or something like that?
I think so.
He's good. You get to see his bare ass.
It is Johnny Flynn.
Thank you.
This just seems like the most British cast for the most part. I mean,
well, Anya Taylor-Joy is one of those.
British.
Sort of.
Yeah, she's Argentine, British, American.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where, like, sometimes when you hear her talk, she's American.
Right.
Like when she did the thing after The Witch, she sounded like, an American high school kid. And then she did the thing at the Coolidge for this, and it's like she's like, so anyway, when we were doing the performance, and it's like, all right, hold on here. What role are you preparing for that you haven't slipped out of the accent?
You don't become more British.
Right.
I just feel like Nicole Kidman became like retroactively like more Australian as time went on. I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Maybe she's speaking more in her natural, accent.
Although if you watch Dead Calm, it's amazing how Australian she is in that movie.
Yeah,
it's just,
she is.
Yeah, she's like, John, is the boat sinking? It's like, whoa. I mean, and then next thing you're going to be like, John, have you got a Foster's available? You should drink it.
Drink in case of emergency.
Yeah. In case of emergency, break glass, drink Foster's.
The Foster's Australian jokes never get old.
They never do.
Although I'm sure they do for the Australians.
Oh, I'm sure they do for the Australians. Anyway, what are your other thoughts on Emma?
I mean, I think you pretty much covered most of my thoughts.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I thought, like I said, Bill Nighy was very funny as usual. I thought Miranda Hart was absolutely delightful. I loved her in Spy. I loved her in this. She was my favorite. I could have just watched a whole movie with her. Like, she was great.
Yeah.
Guy who played Knightley, John Flynn.
Yeah.
He was great too.
Yeah, he's good looking.
Sure.
I think he is. That is,
Take your word for it.
That is a good looking guy.
Yeah. The costumes were gorgeous. Everything was just beautiful to look at. But that was the thing. I found I liked this, but I found myself more enraptured by the visual look of it
I can see
than
that,
really
sure.
being into the story.
You know what was like what set was great was the fucking haberdashery that they went to 1,000,000 times.
Oh my god!
But that
I
store
loved
was
that.
like, man, that's a fucking cool little store.
It is,
You
and I
know?
love that so many things happened there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was great. No, I mean it is great, and I do love that Jane Austen, her works and obviously the adaptations give an opportunity to really explore so many things that are taken for granted as not important, like domesticity, gender roles, class, social mores, and
moray eels.
And more eels, yes, always. Don't forget the eels.
I'm just picturing them wearing bonnets and
Ooh,
pantaloons.
little bonnets. Very cute, having a spot of tea. But yeah, I love that. So I love that about this film, that it's again just an exploration of manners and
Yeah.
So
It was a good time.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Okay. Well then, let's move on to Swallow.
Yes.
Ooh,
I mean, I don't know anything about this
Oh
movie
my God.
other than
Well, buckle up.
oh boy.
Get ready.
Oh hell yeah! I think it's gonna be obvious that I've been excited to talk about this movie because I thought it was really freaking good.
It's fantastic.
Like, it's really good. I think this and The Assistant would make a devastating double feature.
It's funny. I was reading an interview with the director Carlos Mirabella. Oh God, It's
Yeah.
Carlo Mirabella Davis. That's it.
Yes.
And I was reading an interview, and the interviewer asked if he had seen The Invisible Man and compared a lot of thematics with that. So yeah, I agree with The Assistant. It would be great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Invisible Man. I mean,
Invisible Man, The Assistant. They're all dealing with a lot of the same themes.
oh my God, yes. So Dave, this movie is about Pika, but it is about so much more. I feel like there's so much to unpack, but
so
like
much.
the basic story is it stars Haley Bennett, right?
Yep.
She plays Hunter, and she's married to this super rich guy who has these crazy overbearing parents.
Oh my God.
Like
the
I've never
worst.
seen anyone so overbearing as the people in this movie.
Although he's
Really?
the worst too.
He
He's
is
terrible.
he's his own ball
Yeah.
of shittiness. But like, basically, she finds out that she's pregnant, which she's not happy about because you've seen some scenes in the movie where she's trying to talk to her husband and he's clearly not paying attention to her, or like she finds out she's pregnant. She goes out to dinner with his parents. And like she's not even allowed to talk, really. Like,
oh my God, that's horrible. And not only is she not allowed to talk, but he's like talking about himself as a kid, and then he's like, "Tell my parents about that story with the guy on the side of the road." And she's like, "No, like she clearly, this was clearly a secret."
Right.
And he like wanting her to air her dirty laundry and talk about the shit she doesn't want to talk about.
Your dirty
then-
laundry. Okay.
Just like that. And then she starts telling it, and then the father-in-law just swoops in and starts talking over
Talking about
her
work.
About work. It's
because
gross.
the son works for him, and so he's like, he's just gotten a promotion to be like, executive vice president of douchebaggery.
That's a real job.
Yeah, as you
Jared
find out in the
Kushner
movie.
holds it now, I think.
Oh.
Yes,
Indeed.
and so it's this. She has this, life where she feels so trapped, and it only gets worse because what happens is her mother-in-law gives her this self-help book and says, here, I read this when I was pregnant and it helped with the postpartum. And so she reads it and she finds a chapter or a line or something that tells her that she should try something new that she's never tried or something like
Unexpected.
that. Unexpected. And so she has this marble that she's always admired, and she decides to eat the marble. And
That's not where I thought you were going.
so she feels good after doing it. She feels this like sense of empowerment and
control,
satisfaction
yep.
and control. And so then she embarks on this montage of eating things that aren't meant to be eaten, but like horrible things. Like you watch her eat a thumbtack.
Oh, that is so.
There's some
it's
devastating
awful.
imagery in this film, like haunting, devastating imagery. And after she passes everything, she puts each item on her little like it's like a mirror, like
a tray.
a jewelry tray. And so she's like collecting these items.
They're like her trinkets, like her tokens.
Yeah.
After
And
passing
yes.
them.
So then what happens is
she cleans them. Don't worry.
I'm
does
sure
clean
she does.
So so then what
I mean-
happens?
and she swallows a battery. And
it's progressively crazier.
There's a
things
little
that she's
like a
swallowing.
figurine that's like bigger. Yeah, the things keep getting stranger and bigger.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So then she goes in for an ultrasound with her husband, and then they like touch her stomach, and she's like, "Oh my God, it hurts!" And then like they operate on her and remove like several objects from her stomach.
Ooh.
And what happens then is that his parents, first of all, he tells everyone. The guy, her husband, tells like all these people they know that this happened.
Which she finds out at a party.
At a party where someone says like, "Oh, I could eat so many of those, but then I'll have to have my stomach pumped." And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And like the whole party stops for this like awkward moment.
My eyes are very wide, listeners.
Well, and that's also after her husband berates her for doing this and like, you should have told me this before we got married. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
She didn't know about it before she got married.
And that's
The
what
first-
she says. She's
Yeah.
like, I didn't know this was a thing.
Fucking
Yeah.
swallowed a marble 6 weeks ago. Now I'm up to fucking Mr. Peanut figurines. Jesus.
Yeah. That's one of the things about the husband that makes him so shitty, is he comes off at first in the moments as this kind of like subdued, sweet guy, which turns sour so quickly. Like he has this tone where he's like, oh yeah, okay, hon, babe, yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, as
And
he's
then
berating her for not ironing the tie properly. He's a dick from the jump.
He is for sure, but like he
A dick from the
disguises
jump.
it.
That's right.
He disguises it as like, I'm
right.
kind of
I'm
mild mannered,
concerned.
and then
I'm nice.
on the drop of a fucking dime, he's yelling at her.
Exactly.
Or like the entire time, all he does is bitch and moan about how this affects him.
Yep.
Like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to me. Do you know what kind of stress this has put me under? Like every fucking time. It's like, are you fucking get over yourself?
So he's the dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Got it. How could she do this to me? Remember?
I do.
Yeah.
And the windows.
Yeah. So
those two things.
Yeah.
So she goes to the hospital. She has this stuff removed. He's pissed. And then they hire this Syrian guy who is like a caretaker for their dead grandmother to watch over her and like be around the house and make sure she doesn't do it again. But she finds ways to sneak the stuff anyway. She has like a thing under the toilet. It's like a plastic bag full of metal stuff that she eats.
Oh my God. This is not what I thought this movie was going to be.
And then eventually gets to a screwdriver.
What?
Like one of those small thin
Little one.
screwdrivers
Little
with like
one,
the
yeah.
little metal cap on the end.
Yeah.
But then she has to go back to the hospital again because of that. And so then now they're going to send her away to a mental hospital.
But wait, in between, she's seeing a psychiatrist who seems very nice and seems very lovely and is like asking her questions. Although the tip off about the psychiatrist should be at the point when she said, Hunter says, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Can we change the subject?" And rather than being a good psychiatrist and saying, "Of course, we can go at your pace," she's like, "No, we need to talk about this. This is important." And then you find out she's ratting everything out to the husband and breaking patient doctor confidentiality.
Yeah. And also the first appointment, she's sitting there with the father-in-law and her husband sitting there with her at the appointment. And the therapist is like, okay, well, we should get started. And they're like, okay, we'll stay. And she's like, no, that's not really how this works. And they linger for a moment. And she's like, Hunter says, I'll be fine. And they're like, okay, we'll wait out in the hall. But like they were literally going to sit there for her fucking appointment.
Yeah.
Like,
well, because the father-in-law says, I'm paying for it. Like, it's so gross. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just the worst fucking people.
They are really
So
are.
what ends up happening is that she actually bonds with the Syrian guy who's very shitty to her at first because he makes some comment of like, oh, well, I came here because of war. And if you were in war, you wouldn't have time for this like mental diversion or whatever it is. Like you wouldn't even have time for this bullshit.
Yep.
And then it turns out that he's the only one who is sympathetic towards her, and in a scene where she's crying under the bed, he climbs under the bed and makes her comforts
so
her
nice.
and makes her feel safe, and then they both fall asleep laying underneath the bed.
What's
Who finds them asleep under the bed?
Nobody.
No one, but that's how she gets out and gets the screwdriver.
It's not that kind of movie. Although we haven't talked about the rape.
What?
Yeah. So she's in the office with the psychiatrist, and she says something to the effect of like, "Oh, I should probably tell you about the rape thing, but I don't want to talk about it." And the psychiatrist's like, "Wait, what?" And yeah, you find out that her mother was raped, and she is a product of that rape.
Okay.
And her psychiatrist asks, did your mother ever think about terminating the pregnancy? And she's like, no, my mother was, a religious right-wing nut, and she's very nice, but she doesn't believe in abortion, even in cases of rape and incest. So no. So yeah. So then there's that too, which
right. And
comes up again.
She goes to meet her father, her biological father, who's played by Dennis O'Hare, who is.
Ooh,
I think that's actually
I love me some Dennis O'Hare.
That's actually a really great scene too.
That is a great
the confrontation because like he I think he tries to touch her or something. Like,
and she freaks out.
And she just like breaks him in two and is like, I am in charge of this situation. Like, you shut the fuck up and you stand there and wait for what I decide to do.
Yeah, but it's also great because it's at his little girl's birthday party that she's like doing this, that she shows up because she tried to reach out to her mother, who rebuffs her because her sister is there. So clearly her mother wants like really nothing to do with her.
And this is at a point where she's going to be sent to a mental hospital against her will, essentially. They coerce her to go. And
isn't that harder to do than they make it seem in the movies?
In some states, yeah.
Well, do we know what state this is?
It's New York.
Gotta look up my laws.
Yeah, I think in New York you can, but I'm not 100%
I think
sure
you can
of
too,
that.
but I don't.
I'm not 100%
don't think it's easy,
sure.
but I don't know.
Well, they coerce her in the sense that they need her signature, and they're like telling her.
They pressure
yeah,
her and say,
right.
"Oh, it'll just be for 7 months until the baby
right.
comes."
No, but they also say that he's going to divorce her otherwise. So like, and throughout the film, she's kind of laid groundwork that like she doesn't want to mess up. She wants to just make him happy. She doesn't want to make any mistakes. So clearly, like the threat of divorce is like horrifying to her.
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she escapes. The Syrian
From
guy.
New York.
Yes. The Syrian
yes.
guy actually creates a diversion so she can get away, and she runs away. And when she has nowhere else to go, she calls her mom, and that's when her mom says, "Oh no, you can't come."
Right, which is awful.
Which is awful. And where were we talking about? So it was like
when
after
she's
she ran away,
confronting her father.
so she goes to confront Dennis O'Hare, and
So she knows who her father is the whole time.
Yeah, she has a picture of him in her wallet that she carries around with
like
her.
a newspaper
Yeah.
shot of him from because he
'Cause
went
he-
to prison
yeah.
for it. Like he
Oh.
did get in trouble for it, and he did go away for
Which
I
is
don't remember how many
surprising,
years.
but yes.
Yeah, especially if I'm
right?
guessing this woman would have been born in the late 80s. Yeah, that's
She
weird.
was born in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's highly unlikely that he would have gone to prison for rape, but I digress.
Yeah, this is a
Hey,
devastating.
you know who is
film.
going to prison for rape for 23 years?
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Weinstein.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah, this movie is absolutely devastating. It's so good though. Like it's so well done. Like the perspective of like the overbearing family and the abuse and the way that they like just totally make her feel trapped and powerless is like absolutely horrible. The film itself looks gorgeous, and there's this like great kind of like, even though it's a modern era, they have this like 1950s kind of like vibe with like the costumes and the sets
Mm-hmm.
where you just feel like this is, even though it's modern day, there's this like weird retro like horror to this situation that she's in, where she's like trapped in this old timey abusive relationship that still is here in the modern day. And I thought that was like such an interesting like commentary.
Well, it's so funny that you're saying that because in an interview with Carlo Mirabella Davis, he said that the reason how he came up with this story, because he wrote it and directed it, and this was based on his grandmother from the 1950s, and she was in a marriage, and she had obsessive compulsive disorder, and she would wash her hands like 4 or 5 times. She would wash her hands repeatedly throughout the day, and she'd go through like 4 bars of soap like a week, and she'd go through like bottles of rubbing alcohol. Like she was constantly, cleaning her hands. And her husband, his grandfather, thought she, had a massive problem, and he put her in a psychiatric hospital against her will. She had electroshock therapy against her will. She had a lobotomy against her will.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this is horrifying, but that happened, unfortunately. And so he wanted to write about that, about, abusive, trapped kind of controlling relationships. And then he also was inspired by seeing he saw a photo with the contents of someone's stomach that had been pumped after, or, the objects, extracted from someone who had pica. And so it kind of all coalesced, and he wrote this. But yeah, so it's interesting thinking about how there is very much a kind of 1950s retro aesthetic, and look to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the film is absolutely gorgeous. I love the cinematography. I love the costuming, the colors, like the repetition of like reds and pinks along with greens, like all throughout the film. There are other colors too, of course, but like that, like the pinks and reds and greens are kind of, continuous throughout. And I also really love, there's so much blood in this film. There's the blood in her mouth when she has the tack, but also there's her blood, because at the very end of the film she has an abortion, and you see the blood in the toilet, and I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, because at this point she's run away from her husband, and he threatens.
Dave's eyes are so wide right now. It's amazing.
He threatens her over the phone, and like he goes like the worst possible direction.
Yeah, he tells her he's gonna hunt her down. Calls her the C word.
Yeah, and he's like, "I will hunt you down,
the C word.
you like C word, and like I will get my child back." So like the fact that she's able to like escape him and have this abortion and reclaim her body, and I mean, I think the film implies at the end that she she has moved past this phase, like that she doesn't have Pika anymore or Pika, however it's pronounced, because she's no longer trapped in this situation, and she is a return to herself at the end of the film. Like she is now herself again. Therefore, she doesn't feel trapped. Therefore, she doesn't feel the need to do this because she is in control again.
Right, because you see her in like a mall eating like a burger and fries, and she also looks very different. Like she's wearing like a green sweatshirt. Like she's not wearing like these, you know, luxurious gowns like she was
these
wearing.
old like housewife dresses, basically.
Yes. Yeah, she's not in that housewife role. She finally looks more modern. Yeah, and so before, like, I knew the very vaguest about the very vaguest bare minimum about the premise of this film.
Yeah, same.
And what I thought it was going to be like, in a way, and it kind of is, it reminded me of Margaret Atwood's first novel, The Edible Woman, where it's a woman who's about to be married, and she feels trapped by gender roles and societal expectations and her very conforming heteronormative relationship, and so she stops eating. Like first she can't eat meat, then she can't eat eggs, then she can't eat vegetables, and basically she can't eat anything.
Oh, I've read that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. But yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that in reverse. Like she's eating all the things so she can assert, you know, her autonomy and her control.
Totally.
And she can feel good. And, you know, and the idea of consumption and feeling consumed by society or consumed by the patriarchy, and so you consume things, is, you know, obviously a common thread in, you know, films. So I love that it took that idea, but also very sensitively was looking at an actual eating disorder, and just exploring all of these issues of, you know, violating boundaries and of abuse and of manipulation and control and gender roles. And there's just, you're 100% right, Evan, that there's so much to unpack here. And I loved everything about this on a visual level, on a thematic level.
Yeah, it's so great. Well told. The story is so well executed.
Yep.
And you as you're watching it, you're like, I'm seeing all these things that are here. I'm seeing all of the layers, but that never gets in the way of the movie. Like the movie doesn't get in its own way. Like it's dense, but it doesn't feel like you're bogged down by its density.
Right. And yes. I'm just going to echo what you're saying. Right. The narrative doesn't get in the way of the visual aesthetics. The visual aesthetics don't get in the way of the narrative. Yeah. And, you know, I very much thought when she goes to visit her rapist father, which sounds like such a weird statement, I'm like, oh, the film's gone off the rails. Yeah. The film is it's gonna tank now. It's gonna be terrible. It's been so great up until this point. And it feels so like gimmicky. And no, it actually was executed very well.
Yes. The whole scene, the whole conversation they have was so deftly navigated.
Absolutely.
It helps when you have Dennis O'Hare.
Oh, Dennis O'Hare.
He's the master of the one scene, like fucking knock it out of the park.
He's so great.
Yeah,
he really is. Yeah. So this is such a great film.
Okay.
And also the house.
Oh, the modern, this very like modern style house that they live
all
in.
All glass. Yeah.
It's such a great contrast to the aesthetic, like the costumes and the set and everything. It's
absolutely. Yeah, very modern, and then
the retro vibes.
Very retro. Yeah, and also the other thing, because I'm always obsessed with food on screen and I always observe it very closely. Something else that was interesting is that one of the first shots is we see a lamb right before its throat is slit. And then you see it on the plate as it's being eaten for their very fancy dinner. And
oh my God.
Also, one of the interesting things too that I noticed is when she's setting up the nursery, and she looks miserable the whole time because she clearly doesn't want to be pregnant, but the mobile that she sets up is little baby lambs.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? This, you know, constant consumption. And yeah, I just thought that was a nice little nod visually.
Yes, great touch. I agree.
Yeah.
This is a really fucking good movie. It's definitely high on my list from this year. Like between this and The Assistant.
Oh my God, The Assistant is so damn good.
Yeah.
Well, I will try to see this, but I don't know. I'm getting more squeamish in my old age.
It's funny though. It's not a horror film at all.
Sure.
So it's not like, I know we're talking about squeamish things, but maybe I have a stronger stomach, but
I think maybe because
Maybe.
I found
Were you
myself.
squeamish through
I
it?
was extremely squeamish. I'm not
okay, then never mind. Don't listen to me.
Not unlike I felt when I watched Raw. Like there were moments where I was like,
oh my god. So it's funny. I was thinking about Raw the entire time while watching this, and I love Raw so much. Raw is amazing.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to The Hunt. I mean, I guess we should. We saw it.
We did see it.
It is a movie that you watched.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Co-written by our friend Damon Lindelof
and Nick Cuse.
Yeah. Have they written things together before? I know that Damon Lindelof was part of Lost and
Carlton Cuse. So Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof are a writing team, and then Nick Cuse, I believe, is Carlton Cuse's son, maybe his brother, but I think his son, and I think they've written things together before.
Got it.
But I cannot remember. Maybe he might have worked. He might have worked on The Leftovers with Damon Lindelof. I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, that's right. He did The Leftovers.
God damn, he sure did, because The Leftovers is one of the greatest TV shows of all time.
Well, okay. What's the percentage of the world that disappears? It's only like
2%.
2%. That doesn't seem like a lot.
Well, I mean, it's not, but when you're talking about like 6 billion people, it, adds up.
It's not like half the planet, like fucking.
But that's not the point.
I know.
You're like, I know.
Anyway, The Hunt. This movie definitely subverted my expectations at the beginning, just because.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. Yes.
Yeah, you all of these people get kidnapped, and put in this field. It's an open field, and two of them are, if not famous, then you know who they are. There's Emma Roberts and Justin Huntley, is that his name?
Yeah.
From This Is Us,
yep.
the pretty one from This Is Us.
The pretty one.
Yeah, the guy who plays the movie star, who has actually turned into a really good character. I don't know if you watch that show,
I do
but
not.
You do not?
I do not.
His character is like, he's kind of the weak link in the first season, and then like things happen.
Oh,
it's
does
like,
he blossom?
It's not like he blossoms.
Oh.
It's just like, yes, sort of, but at the same time, it's just like he also gets better in the role, and I think it's because the role gets better.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so you see him in the Emma Roberts is like the first person you see. There's an opening scene where all these rich people are on a plane. Well, first they're texting about like killing deplorables, which turns out to be a joke. But then they're on a plane, and you see, I guess, what is supposed to be a deplorable come through and be like, meh, and he's been drugged, but he's woken up.
Right.
And they kill him. And then they drag him into where all the other deplorables are, and they lay him down next to Emma Roberts, and you're like, oh, Emma Roberts. That's right. I remember reading in the press notes that she's one of the main characters. Nope, she gets her head blown off 3 minutes later.
See, this is why I don't read the press notes until after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually read them. The cast list is, I'm pretty sure she's like the first or second person listed. It's like Emma Roberts, Ike Barinholtz, and it's like, all right. So then Justin Huntley gets killed like 2 minutes after that, and then Ike Barinholtz gets killed 5 minutes after that.
People
so
are dropping like flies.
Wait a minute, who the fuck is left alive? So Ethan Suplee and Betty Gilpin are the ones who are left alive, basically.
I have to make a small correction. It's Justin Hartley.
Justin Hartley.
Thank you, Evan, for keeping us on target.
But that's definitely Ethan Suplee.
It is Ethan Suplee.
Oh, yeah.
You always know.
Who's had a very interesting career, I might add.
He has.
Just shows up in the strangest places.
Unfortunately, but yeah.
Well, and I mean, and he's fine in this. He's perfect for this role.
Actually, he is perfect for this role.
Yeah.
He's obnoxious.
Like, you can definitely see him, like, when you think of Ethan Suplee and then you think, conspiracy theorist, it all fits. So
yeah, I know. I feel like we're jumping ahead a little. We should probably back up.
Well, I said there's the opening scene is the text messaging about killing deplorables.
Oh no, I didn't mean about that. I didn't mean that.
You gotta give people a high level summary.
That's what I meant.
Well, high level summary. Well, why don't you do the summary then?
All right. Basically, I'm terrible at summaries, but okay.
Okay. Do you want me to do it?
No. Basically, people are being hunted by wealthy,
by 1%ers,
elites who are Democrats or progressives, and the people being hunted are Republicans, mostly working class.
Yeah. There you go.
There's the summary.
And unfortunately, although not a bad idea in theory, I would posit that the execution is so on the nose that it's really just irritating.
Well, so that's funny that you say that. So, because I was thinking a lot about it, and I was like, there has to be a reason why they were so on the nose with the stereotypes, and there was. Craig Zobel, the director, talks about this in an interview that he's like, that's the point. It's supposed to be stereotypes because, and this is where my big problem with the film is. The point is they're Damon Lindelof and Nick Hughes and Craig Zobel are all trying to point out how the more extreme you go, it's all bad, and it's like.
It's not.
No, fuck
That's
off.
not,
It's like,
no.
no, fuck off. We're not gonna
Wanting to give you-
play this game that everybody's bad.
Wanting to
now.
give you free healthcare is not the same as wanting you to die because you don't have healthcare.
or wanting you to die because you're queer, or
Yeah.
wanting you to die because you're trans, or wanting you to, like be forced to have a baby, like if you don't want
Yeah,
one, like
exactly.
no, fuck off. No,
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I think only white dudes think. I don't know.
thank you. I agree with that.
I'm just gonna throw that as a white dude. I can survey my other white dudes and be like, yeah, that seems on point too.
Right. I mean, that's right. Like, I agree with you that there's a really good idea here. Like, and yeah, like I love The Most Dangerous Game, the story it's based on, very loosely. And like, I loved that story when I read it, like as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there are good ideas here. But I read a headline, I think it was at Entertainment Weekly, I'm not sure, but someone who was reviewing the film said, as a survival horror film, this movie is fantastic, but as a political satire, it's terrible.
Yeah,
and I'm
that's
like,
all true.
And I'm like, yes and yes, I could not agree more, because yeah, if we're just looking at it as a survival horror film, Betty Gilpin is amazing in this. She anchors this film. She is the most interesting person on screen. And I know you had talked about after we got out of the screening how expressive her face is.
Yeah, for sure.
She's just so riveting.
She can do a lot
So much.
without
With-
saying anything.
Exactly. She's
Yeah.
riveting in this.
Which she does regularly on Glow.
I know,
say.
which now I have to tell you, I mean, her and Alison Brie, I now want to definitely see it. But yeah, but like, so there's some great things happening, like with, her and with the visuals, and I think the pacing is fantastic. Like, it was relentless.
Pacing is good.
Yeah, I was not bored once. There's not one single slow moment. It's great. However, when we get to the ideas and the politics of it, it's, I think, a bit of a shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we should also talk about the fact that this movie was supposed to come out,
Yes.
several months ago, at least 6 or more.
Yeah, last year, definitely
then
last year.
They pulled it because
Yep.
people were angry.
Because of 2 mass shootings.
Yes.
And because
What does this have to do with mass shootings? I mean, not that. Not that.
I know.
It's kind of like, that's one thing. It's, I mean, first of all, why are there guns? Second,
That's a great question. Why are there guns?
But yeah, moving on.
Yeah. But also then Trump tweeted about it, about how this is a racist film and liberals are
Racist?
Liberals are racist, and this film is just trying to incite chaos and blah, 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 and whatever
You
other
mean like
bullshit.
every time that he tweets
And
to
opens his mouth.
Yeah, to incite
Oh,
chaos.
fucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that too. So I think all of those reasons, that's why Universal pulled it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was kind of weird. Like all of a sudden, like 2 months ago, we're like, the hunt's coming out. And it's like, wait, what? Like I'd
Yeah.
forgotten it was going to be even
Are
a
they like
thing.
feeling some kind of like crazy Bernie momentum? And they're like, all right, it's safe to put this out now.
They missed the boat
Maybe.
on that shit. I think that another problem that I had with it, and this is my big complaint about lots of movies these days. I like me some violence in movies. I like it a lot. But when I'm going to have me some violence in movies, I want it to look real. I don't want it to look like a computer generate, like when Emma Roberts gets killed.
Oh, yeah,
Which
that's
is-
bad.
It's so awful. It looks so fake and stupid.
I almost didn't know if she'd actually gotten shot in the head because it looked so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so it's just, there's, when Ike Barinholtz gets shot, that actually looks kind of real because then they show a close up of it and they
Yeah.
actually did some makeup on that. And you're like,
Right.
ooh, that's kind of gross. But, I just don't know what my problem is. Just the sort of like cavalier violence in a lot of these movies really rubs me the wrong way. Like the whole like stiletto heel through the eyeball, and then she pulls the stiletto heel out of the
Oh,
guy's
yeah.
head, and his whole eye comes out with the.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just like, is that really necessary? I mean,
Yes.
I don't know.
I was fine with it. I liked
I
it.
was perfectly fine with the stabbing in the jugular. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
okay.
But the
The
eyeball
stabbing in
thing,
the eye was a little over the top. for
because
you.
it's just like, well, he's gonna bleed to death. I mean, fucking whatever,
Yeah.
So why do you need to stab him in the eye? to show that fucking Hilary Swank is evil.
Well, that's the other really weird thing about this. We don't see her face until like the last 20 minutes of the movie.
I kind of wonder if she didn't shoot those scenes.
Maybe, I guess. That's
or maybe
possible.
it's their big movie star reveal. I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, but when they do finally show her face, it's definitely her voice too.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I remember they show her face. I'm like, oh, that's right. She's in this.
Right.
And I guess, it's like one of those, it's a with or an and that she gets before her name. So it's a big deal. So, we got a 2-time Academy Award winner to play this shitty part, which she could play in her sleep. I mean, it's just a crummy part. And that's kind of, unfortunately, what has become of her career is crummy parts in larger movies.
Yeah, I was going to say, except for I Am Mother, she's really good in that.
Yeah. Yes, she is good in that.
I liked her in Logan Lucky, too.
Well, that's actually how she got the role for this.
I liked her in The Homesman, even though she fucking weirdly dies 2/3 of the way through. But
oh my God, she's amazing in that movie, and that movie's garbage.
yeah.
Yes,
but anyway.
agreed.
Yeah,
that was an early spoiler piece disagreement. Is that I was a dissenting voice.
I'm with you, Evan. That movie is fucking hot garbage.
I was on board with that movie until she hangs herself.
I agree.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, what is this movie gonna be now?
And that's why that movie's hot garbage, because she's dead. I'm out. Fuck this movie.
I mean, I understand from a character point why she did what she did, but at the same time, I'm like, but I mean, this should be where the movie ends, But it would only be 70 minutes long. That's weird. Tommy Lee Jones, what the fuck? Okay, so anyway, The Hunt.
Back to The Hunt.
So all these people who've been kidnapped get dropped in a field. They find a box full of weapons to defend themselves. And I also want to say, I found Glenn Howerton's portrayal of he's one of the rich people, Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny.
Yes.
I found his portrayal of that character really distasteful.
I think that's the point.
But
yes.
I found it distasteful because I feel like they were sort of, how do I put this? I feel like he was supposed to be unspoken swishy.
Oh.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's wearing the kimono.
Yep.
Which is a stupid joke, by the way.
Such a
That's cultural
stupid joke.
appropriation. It's not. No, he's just wearing a fucking kimono, okay?
No, well, I'm going to disagree. I do think it's actually cultural appropriation.
You can go to Japan and get a
Yeah.
kimono. I mean, it's like,
I think it's a fine line. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's not a hill I'm going to die on. But yeah. But it's a fine line.
Also, like, I don't like to see Macon Blair underused like this.
Oh my God, I know.
And
Macon Blair's always so good. I mean,
he's always so
and
good.
I mean, I think again he did the most with what he could here.
I am very glad that you don't actually see his head get run over. When his head does get run over.
There is that.
But anyway, they get dropped in the field. They had to defend themselves. They kill the names you recognize the most first.
Yeah.
To kind of be
I
like.
thought that was great.
Yeah, at the same time, though, it's just kind of like, oh, haha, I see what you're doing. Like, you're
It is
subverting our
gimmick.
expectations.
Yeah, it is gimmicky.
It's totally
I still
gimmicky.
loved it. I bought into it. But yes, it's very gimmicky.
I did think when Justin Hartley stepped on the landmine, I didn't accept that. The landmine. I didn't expect that. And I was like, ew.
Right. But I do kind of love his little look of like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that was actually good. But yeah.
So,
But the one they don't expect.
well, they kidnapped the wrong person, which is also
you
kind
find
of,
that out all the way at the end. But yes.
Yeah, but
Betty Gilpin's like, I'm a liberal. Why'd you kidnap me?
well, she never says what her
right.
politics are.
Well, and right, that the whole point is that she's not political at all, and so she's the savior, I guess, of the movie in the sense that like we follow her. She's the most fascinating person. She's the most rational person.
Oh,
she's also a
great.
badass. She's ex-military, so she's a veteran. She is taking out people left and right.
Mm-hmm.
She's very clever. Like she's sitting on train tracks to like feel where it's coming from.
Okay.
And, like,
I can get on board with that.
so-
Kind of like your next style.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
totally.
I literally wrote that. I was like, she's like the protagonist from Your Next, which I love. Your
Great
Next
fucking
too.
movie.
My God, Your
Yeah.
Next is amazing. I love it. But yeah, so she's.
That was in my top 10 list that year it came out.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I saw that later, so it was not in my top 10 list, but retroactively it would be. But yeah, I mean, so Betty Gilpin is great as this character, and there's also a lot of stereotypes made about her because like at the end when she has this confrontation with Hilary Swank's character Athena, she can't believe that she's read Animal Farm, and she can't believe that like she knows Beethoven and shit like that, which is so stupid just because she has a heavy Southern accent. Like, it's fucking bullshit. But
I
it's
know. I'm pretty sure James Carville's probably read Animal Farm.
well, I'm
but,
sure
you
lots
know.
of people who are
That was the
yeah.
first person with a heavy Southern accent I could
that
think
you
of.
thought of, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing too that I was again. This is the film's problem about being too on the nose. Like, I love that we hear that the pig is named Snowball. And I'm like, oh, it's an Animal Farm reference. And then we're literally fucking told it's an Animal Farm reference. And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
I hate when films do that.
Well, it's just
so
like
annoying.
it's like we want to make this point, you know, blah 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 blah. By the way, let's assume our audience is
It's
stupid. And I'm
stupid.
of two minds about this. I kind of do think audiences need to be fucking dragged out of the dark, but but also, I mean, it's just so condescending. It's like, can you just
Yeah.
disguise it 10% maybe? I don't
Right.
know. So that's the hunt. So she lives. She kills. She makes it through. She's the only one who survives. We don't actually know. Wait a minute. All the photos on the wall. Was the guy she killed? What was his name? Dan?
Dale.
Dale.
No, Don.
Don. Was he one of the kidnapped
I
or
never
not?
saw him, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
think
sure.
we do because we see
There's 11 photos on the wall.
Yeah, we see the big game hunter. We see like people. Yeah, we see various people that have been killed, like doing shitty shit.
Yeah.
Shitty shit.
I know. I gave up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing like there's somebody at a homophobic rally. There's somebody's at a KKK rally. So they're all doing horrible things, but we never find out about Don, the guy who
Right,
she was
because
kind of
there are
allied
11
with.
photos.
Right.
Right. And they say there were 12 of them,
Yep.
but there's only 11 photos.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was funny is they throw each other when Hilary Swank and Betty Gilpin throw each other. They have this climactic fist fight, foot fight, whatever else.
Throwing things, going through walls,
going
going
through walls,
outside,
going through windows.
Yeah.
And Betty Gilpin, there's a moment where they're both so fucked up that Hilary Swank's just like, I need a minute, and Betty Gilpin's like, yeah, and they take a minute, and then Betty Gilpin picks up Hilary Swank and is about to throw her through a glass door, and Hilary Swank just says, no more glass. And so Betty Gilpin opens the door and then throws her inside. And it was just like, I was like, I kind of like that moment.
No, that was
that
great.
even when they're trying to kill each other, it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, just give me one thing.
Not
Yeah.
the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Not
right.
in the face.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the movie ends with Betty Gilpin cauterizing her own, gut wound with
a blowtorch.
With a blowtorch.
Like you do.
Probably
Well,
for,
there
like,
was a
creme brulee or
blowtorch, and
something.
yeah, exactly.
For creme brulee.
Well, Hilary
there-
Swank
there's
does
a
a whole
grilled
goes on a whole
cheese sandwich
grilled
thing.
cheese diatribe about the proper cheese and the proper everything. So
I'm kind of on board. If you were going to eat a grilled cheese, which you would not because you are vegan, I would go with the Gruyere for the melty properties.
Sure,
But not
yeah.
for the salty properties. The
No.
Gruyere is too mild.
well, that's why you need a mixture of cheeses, I would argue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No yellow cheeses, thank you. So, so Betty Gilpin puts on one of Hilary Swank's dresses, which doesn't seem to work for me because she's a couple inches taller than Hilary Swank, but whatever.
They're both tall ladies, though.
And then she gets on the private jet with the, 1907 bottle of champagne and
Yeah.
tells the pilot, fly, and the flight attendant, she's like, why don't you have some caviar with me?
Well, which is a nice bookend to the guy
The
from It's
opening
Always
gag.
Sunny, who's an absolute asshole to the flight attendant and is like, you've never even had caviar, blah, 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 and it's not real caviar, blah, blah, blah. And then here's Betty Gilpin being like, have the caviar, it's great, and like is so kind and like lovely. So
Yeah. Even after
Yeah.
she's killed lots of people, she's like,
well, they were trying to kill her.
I know.
It's totally fine.
Yeah. I kind of like that she was, they make clear it's like she's not a killer. She's just
Right.
doing this because she has to,
Exactly.
Exactly.
You also didn't say how the thing you knew, where
Oh,
how
sure.
Betty Gilpin knows that
That she's not in Arkansas.
correct.
So she goes to this convenience store to buy cigarettes from Amy Madigan and some guy I recognize but can't remember his name. And she says, I'd like a pack of lights, which is a good way to get around naming a cigarette brand.
Uh-huh.
And so they put the cigarettes down and they tell her it's, 10, it's like what, they don't tell her how much it is, but she gets change back. She gets a 10 and then some change. And then she kills both of them. And then she's like, cigarettes in Arkansas are only like $6.50. And when I saw them put down the 10, I was just like, nope. Because I used to live in that part of the country and I know how inexpensive cigarettes are compared to, say, New York or wherever else. And there you go. So I knew that Betty Gilpin was going to figure it out and not be killed in that moment.
Nice.
Yes.
So
Think they were Morley cigarettes? X-Files? Anyone?
they were.
Oh,
re-
yeah.
They were red apples.
Oh,
So,
X-Files.
Do you have anything else to say about The Hunt?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do have more. I'm very conflicted about this film. So because there were a lot of things I liked, like I enjoyed watching this. I enjoyed Betty Gilpin. I was like, I want to see this character do like a million other things. But I cannot get over the fucked up politics of this, in that like Damon Lindelof did an interview recently with Entertainment Weekly where he talks about how the whole point of this film and the story is that the more extreme you get on either side, the more dangerous it becomes. And it's like, no, fuck off. Like, I know we already talked about it, but it's just like, no, you're completely missing the point.
You're preaching to the choir, sister.
It's just so obnoxious. It's like, I just can't. So, and I'm also really disappointed that someone who had such a beautiful, sensitive, complex, complicated show like The Leftovers and Watchmen, which is so absolutely progressive, like so much centers Black women, racial justice, denounces white supremacy, also wrote this? Like, it's just...
Well, you know,
What?
this is 90 minutes long, and how many episodes of Watchmen and The Leftovers
Fair.
are there?
That's fair. There's 28 of Leftovers, and there's 9 or 10 of Watchmen. So, yeah. So, clearly, he's someone who needs time to
He
tell
needs
a
time to
story.
extrapolate.
Yes. So, but I loved Betty Gilpin in this, and I hope she blows up after this because she's so good.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. Between
Mhm.
Glow and Nurse Jackie, she kicks ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
I now need to go back and see those. Just, yeah.
Okay. So I think we've got a C. You have a reluctant see Emma, and I have a go see Emma.
I don't know if I'd say reluctant. I just didn't love it like you did, but
Okay.
I liked it.
I
enjoyed
like me
it.
some period costume stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you want something that's kind of escapist and you want to just, look
It's
at something
definitely
gorgeous,
light on its feet.
want to look at some kind of macaron candy hues for...
That is a great way to put it. Macaron,
you.
exactly.
Thank
yes.
you. Yeah, if you want to do that for 90 minutes, yeah, go see it.
So it sounds like you're both on board with Swallow, though.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
fuck
yes.
yes.
Swallow is so good.
Hell yeah. See
Yes.
it anywhere, early and
Everywhere.
often.
And
Comes out Boston on Friday.
Yeah.
Woo.
I'm gonna say take a pass on The Hunt unless you find it on Prime or Netflix or Hulu.
I
or-
know, like I want to say pass, but at the same time, Betty Gilpin is so fucking
That's
good
true.
in this.
Well, this is what I told you after. I'm like, if we got a 5-star scale, this is a 2.5-star movie for me.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
almost there.
yeah. I think this
Like
needs,
its strengths almost kill its flaws, but not quite.
yeah,
Because its flaws are significant.
Oh my God, yeah. This definitely is highly problematic in so many. I mean, we didn't even delve into like all the problematic shit in the.
It's just take too much
There's so
time.
I know there's so much. So yeah, so I want to say pass, but also I kind of want to say see it because Betty Gilpin is just so damn good in it.
Yeah. So I'll go along with that.
All right, fair.
Yeah. I'll what do we say? What do we say in the court system when we concur? I don't know. When you're writing an opinion and you add on, you're like, yes, I like that one. So or whatever. So ordered. I don't know anything about law.
What's this law stuff?
Yeah. So anyway, that does it for this ep of Spoiler Piece Theater. That's right, ep. And that's Insider for you guys for episode. So sorry. I couldn't even say that with a straight face.
No.
So if you wanted to continue listening to the show, you can find it wherever you get podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to rate us, that would be awesome.
Hell
on,
yeah.
On is it Podchaser?
Yes, we're available on Podchaser for rating. You can go to
RateMyPodcast.com.
rate this podcast.
Rate this podcast.
So
.com
close.
Yeah.
/ spoiler piece,
Mm.
and that will take you to whatever platform you so care to rate us on. We would greatly appreciate it.
We would love that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'd love it. I mean, we're not gonna like buy a cake or anything. But
Maybe we'll buy you cake.
maybe that's true. Maybe that'll be a new Patreon thing. So, but let's talk about this. There are all kinds of places you can get in touch with us if you wanted to suggest movies to us or tell us that you think that Swallow is crap or whatever.
For shame.
I'm just saying if they thought that. That's all I'm saying. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com. You can go to the website, spoilerpiece.com. You can leave us a note on our Facebook page, Spoiler Piece Theater. You could give us a call.
At 862-21-PEACE.
Yeah, and you could leave us a voicemail. And if it's totes hilaire, then we would put it on the show and probably not make fun of you. So, I don't know.
Why would we make fun of people?
Well, that's kind of what I do. I mean,
I was just like, wait, what show am I on?
Yeah.
I forgot.
so, but I mean, I would never make fun of a listener. That's true. So, and if you super totes love us, it would be awesome if you went to our Patreon and gave us a little bit of the dough. And that way, if you give us the $1, that's awesome. If you give us the $5, you get your exclusive audio. You give us the $10, you can like tell us what movies to watch. Also, by the way, on the $5 here, I forgot to mention you get to vote on a movie for us to watch. We will have a poll up soon.
We sure will.
And yeah, we're thinking about rejiggering the tiers because we just kind of feel like kind of might be time. I don't know, but let us know. What tier? What would you want to see as like a I don't want to use the word reward, right?
Perk?
That's not a perk. A perk for a tier. What would you want to see? And don't say buy me a Cadillac because we can't do that.
Also, what is this, 1985?
I know.
I was like, Cadillac.
It's the first car that came to my mind. I'm not gonna. I was born in 19, so Cadillacs are on my mind. And also, by the way, did you guys see the picture of the Batmobile muscle car version?
Yes, I did.
It's interesting that it's a 70s muscle car. That's interesting. Anyway, that's neither here nor there because that movie's not coming out for like another 8 months, year.
Something like that.
But anyway, my name is Dave Riedel. You can find me on Salt Lake City Weekly. That's where I write. And I am also on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Instagram as Dave Sees Movies.
I'm Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer and film critic, editor of Bitchflix, member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram at TheOpinionS.
And my name is Evan Crean. I'm editor for The Independent. I am co-chair of BAFTA and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. And you can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
And we will see yous next week.
Bye.
Bye.